Over 150 car drivers are being killed in gruesome accidents and collisions with truck trailers every year. Should the trucking industry be responsible? That and more coming up on this week's Truck News and Talk Show on Sirius XM, Channel 167, Canada Talks. Hello, I'm Stan Campbell.
And I'm Tim Dennis.
Hi, this is James Menzies from Truck News Magazine.
Welcome to the Trucker Radio News and Talk Show on Sirius XM, Channel 167, Canada Talks. This is a one-hour show opening doors and minds to today's modern, fast-moving trucking industry and the people who make it work. This week, Tim Dennis and I have a conversation with Robert Martineau. He represents a company called AirFlow Deflector, Inc. He talks about a new deflector which installs under big rig trailers intended to prevent horrible decapitating accidents. But should the trucking industry be compelled to pay? Now, 150 car drivers are being killed in gruesome accidents and collisions with truck trailers every year. Also, some bicyclists have been killed or maimed seriously by truck trailers. Well, should the trucking industry be responsible, or should we all just be more careful? Well, a lot more careful. Tim Dennis is here. We're going to talk to Robert Martineau in Montreal about that issue. Bonjour, Robert.
Bonjour, Stan. Bonjour, Tim.
You're in West Island, Montreal.
Correct.
You actually manufacture...
What we manufacture is side guards
Side
for
guards.
city and semi-trailer trucks.
There was a story back about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, about a new study about crash. You know, we've seen a couple of crash videos where people have run into trailers into the side of them. There was one just day before yesterday, I believe. Luckily, the guy didn't die this time. But these things are happening, and often they're deadly. Who's responsible for this? Is it the driver? Is it the trucking company? And how do we prevent this from happening?
I guess that's a really good question because in hindsight, when one vehicle runs into another, there's a lot of mitigating factors to find out what the root cause is. But at the end of the day, according to IHS, David Zuby, Executive Director, side guards and different types of technology that exist today at least can mitigate and perhaps save somebody's lives. So whether it's the truck driver or the driver of the vehicle and a collision happens, hopefully there's enough technology that it doesn't matter who is at fault, that the technology does what it was designed to do and save the road users' lives.
The technology has been around for quite some time, one would assume, but what's kind of held it back? Is it just sheer cost on the part of the trucking companies?
If I look back to our entry into the side guard business, especially in the semi-trailers, we were actually asked to produce a product. We had success producing a product for City of New York in a Vision Zero initiative that they started in 2013. So we submitted a prototype model, which was selected, and we had a IHS roundtable underwrite conference in May of 2016 last year, and somebody in the audience asked me, would we produce one? And my first reaction was, it appears that the market does not want one, and then subsequent to a few dialogues, we took up the challenge and produced the side guard. So I think it's a combination of why didn't it happen? I think the will wasn't there, or the desire wasn't there, and or manufacturers such as AirFlow Deflector didn't see the opportunity, commercial or otherwise, and so didn't rise to the challenge. So in our particular case, we were asked to produce a solution, and Angel Wing was designed and launched as witnessed by the IHS test that they did in their press release as of May 2017.
Robert, most people who are familiar with this are familiar with two kinds of side guards. One, which is just basically for aerodynamic reasons and save on fuel cost and that kind of thing. And then there's the different one that you're referring to, which also involves a great deal more safety for four-wheelers or anything else that might come in contact. Where did AirFlow begin?
The company itself started in 1994, and 2006, 2007, we actually got into the aerodynamic space where we produced a product called AirFlow Deflector. The name of the company was actually a product, and so the main objective of that device was to save fuel, and this was attached. It's called an undercarriage sideguard deflector, and this being SmartWay certified, it reduced the consumption of fuel between 5 and 8%. The company then, through the initiative or the request, a white paper request by the City of New York, we took that design and extrapolated it to a city truck, garbage truck, sanitation truck model, and then the Angel Wing side underride for the semi-trailers evolved from the city truck application.
Now, getting to the actual prevention of these things happening. Now, for example, apparently the AirFlow, it allows cars traveling 35 miles an hour to bounce off the metal skirting, which you manufacture. But 35 miles an hour, to me, seems kind of slow. What about these people who, and it looks like they're traveling at a high rate of speed, that just fly into the side of a trailer? For example, at an intersection, if somebody goes through a stop sign or a red light, you can't help them much if they're doing 60 miles an hour or 100 kilometers an hour, right?
That is true. So I think why 35 miles an hour? I think the different testing facilities, government bodies, insurance companies adopted 35 miles an hour of the quasi standard, use that as a basis. And so if we think from that particular side of things and where side guards or underride protection devices have evolved prior to the introduction of Angel Wing to the market, 35 mile an hour was considered a speed that was unimaginable, meaning that was too fast. So certainly with the advent of movement of people, 35 miles an hour might seem like a slow speed, but I think if we look at the vehicles that are produced today, even in the most basic vehicles with anti-avoidance sensors, if a car is traveling at 55 or 60 miles an hour and it sees, the car senses that there's an obstruction, whether it's a wall, a tree or something, a car, a truck, it'll slam the brakes on and reduce the speed. So I think if we look at 35 miles an hour as a base, certainly we have to start somewhere, but certainly the objective of AirFlow Deflector and the guards that we produce, 35 hours was the minimum speed, and we're working today to introduce guards that will be equally as effective at greater speeds like 40 or 50 miles an hour. So that's certainly within our business model, our business plan as we look forward as to, what's the next step for AirFlow Deflector.
Robert, as well as the protection, do the Angel Wings provide the same amount of savings in terms of fuel and aerodynamics? Can you combine the two and get both benefits?
Yes, you can. I think that's a great question. If we actually look at the product and the press release video that of the test that was performed at the IHS, the skirt that was actually shown there was a off-the-market, off-the-shelf side skirt or a composite fairing skirt. So Angel Wing is actually not the skirt itself, but it's actually what is installed behind the skirt. The Angel Wing is comprised of 2x3 rectangular tubes with saddle brackets attached to the cross members of the trailer itself. And so this what provides the protection, and then the traditional fairing skirts, side skirts, are attached to the truck in its traditional sense. So Angel Wing as a product does not save fuel, but with the attachment of a composite fairing skirt, the traditional ones that you see on the trucks today, then it's the fairing skirts that saves fuel. So to the truck driver, if you already have a trailer that has a pre-installed side fairing skirt, the Angel Wing will work or will integrate with that skirt. So not only do you get your fuel savings, but the Angel Wing will provide the underride protection. So it's really what's behind the skirt that will save lives as opposed to the skirt itself.
I want to play the devil's advocate here for a second, and I'm putting myself in the role of a company owner. I own 100 trucks or what have you. That's a significant expense to prevent some man, woman, whoever, who is not paying attention, who's driving crazy, who's going to fly into the side of my truck. There's no benefit for me other than obviously wanting to save lives. But the cost, I think of, if we go by that rule, maybe we should all have parachutes on airplanes. It doesn't make sense to me as an owner of a company.
I think we have to look at it from a number of different factors, and if I think one would focus strictly on that analogy, one might draw that same conclusion. But in our experience in the field, we see when there's an accident, whether it's my fault or your fault, there's a number of different players that are involved. So number one, the driver of the rig. So if I'm a company owner with 100 vehicles that I expect 100 of my employees to drive in some capacity, and I don't provide them the safest vehicle possible, and there's an accident, then not only can I blame somebody from running into my truck, which is one thing, but really it affects the lives of everybody. So it's the victims. So victims here are the driver, his fault or not, of the rig itself or the car itself. So as a business owner, Angel Wing and most side underride protection devices of any substance, and ours particularly, will last long beyond the life of a trailer. So if you look at a typical trailer of lasting 12 to 15 years and an average install of $3,500, so you're talking a couple of $100 a year to provide peace of mind and safety. So I think of it as installing brakes. We can get good quality brake pads, we can get poor quality brake pads. So you want to provide equipment, safety equipment to your employees that meets the highest standard possible because, I believe as a fleet owner, it's part of your responsibility. So the overall cost effectiveness spread over the life of the trailer, I think, is far outweighs the dollar and cents component of it.
What about the insurance companies? Have they weighed in on this? Because of premiums that, obviously a big trucking company would have to pay.
So the answer is yes. So we as a company are in talks with many insurance companies. The IHS is the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. So the IHS is a private testing body that's funded in some part with the insurance companies. So I think the insurance companies are looking to the future as to what the highway environment will look like. And so dialogue with insurance companies that we've had, they're interested in this for sure to limit costs, provide good recommendations to its policyholders. They're actually talking about if truckers have these types of protective devices, Angel Wing being one of them, reductions to their premiums for the policies. So I see that conversation benefiting both the insurance companies and also the drivers to install these types of safety things. And we see this on personal vehicles where you put in anti-theft, these types of components that you get a reduction of your premiums. So I think it's a good dialogue that everybody's having.
I would think that traveling to the USA, litigation is everywhere. We've heard the horror stories of companies that have been sued, and when common sense would say that they were not at fault, but that doesn't stop somebody from getting sued. Not only do you have to pay damages to the people affected, but you also have punitive damages that some judges go into outer space with settlements. So I would think that insurance companies would be happy to know that you have these if you're traveling in the U.S.
I would agree with that. Part of what I do is I do a lot of the talk circuit. I'm an advocate for this type of legislation, not only, and that primary goal is not from the commercial side of things. We were asked to produce this product by different stakeholders, so we rose to the occasion. So I see the insurance and the different actors, as I like to call them, involved in trucking. Most people are very, very positive of what we've done. That's fleet owners, the insurance companies, trailer manufacturers, the average person, lawmakers. I run into very little resistance as far as commending the spirit of what we're doing, and I think as part and parcel of everyday living, we'll always have both sides of call it a story, represented. And so I think that type of dialogue is very constructive because it keeps the topic at the front and center, pushes us to produce a lesser expensive product, a more easily installable product. Insurance companies are happy. Everybody seems to be forward. I see the landscape of the underride topic, front, side, and rear, in the last 2 or 3 years has really changed much for the positive.
Just one other quick answer on this here. Do you see this as somewhere down the road coming legislation coming on this that trailers will have to have these?
Yes. If we extrapolate using the side guards for cities like Boston and New York specifically have legislated the issuance of side guards on certain type of vehicles over a particular weight. We see this in Europe, UK, China, Brazil. Laws are in place that big semi-trailers have to have a type of side underride protection. So the North American landscape is no different than Europe. So I see this coming. When? Not sure, but I see this coming. But I also see the passage of the law of not the number one motivator to pass underride, but I really think that fleet owners, company owners have been made aware, and I think a lot of people will do it because it's the right thing to do as opposed to being forced to do it.
Saving lives is always important. Robert, thank you very much. You are with, by the way, AirFlow Deflector, Inc.
That is correct.
Robert, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have yourself a great
That's
day.
Robert Martineau with AirFlow Deflector, Inc. If you have questions or comments, get in touch. You can connect with me, Stan, at truckerradio.com, or just go to our webpage at truckerradio.com and go to the comments page. In fact, if you've missed any of our previous shows, we have an archives page. You can go there and listen to some of our previous Trucker Radio news and talk shows. It's trucknewstalk.com.